So somebody, before we get started, tell me in your own words what plagiarism is. And don't look it up and plagiarize. Just tell me what it is based on what you understand it to be. I have until 6 o'clock, so.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So, plagiarism is taking someone else's work and using it as your own. Oh, it's in the chat.
See, I don't see the chat, so there you go. Yeah, so basically that's a really good example of what plagiarism is. So thank you, Jeremy. And if I didn't know any better, I would know that you knew what I was about to say, right? So plagiarism is when a person takes the ideas or the words from someone else and claims those words or ideas as their own. All right. And, let me be very clear when I, go over all of this information, especially everything that's at the front end. As we're talking about plagiarism, all the information in this slide comes from the website at the bottom. All right. These are not my own ideas. These are not my own words. These come from somewhere else. All right. But plagiarism isn't solely taking the ideas or the words of someone else and claiming them as your own. It can also occur when a person uses the work of someone else without crediting that source, or taking an idea from some other source and presenting it as if it was new or original. Plagiarism is considered literary theft, all right? And basically, at the end of the day, it's an act of fraud where a person is ultimately stealing someone else's work and then lying about it afterwards. And, while this may sound scary, and it is very serious, a lot of students that are accused of plagiarizing, they really do so or are accused of it because they don't understand fully what plagiarism is and they don't know how to avoid plagiarism. All right, and so that's what the point of today really is to teach you how can you avoid plagiarizing someone else's work. Particularly because a lot of the stuff that you're going to write while you're in the master's program here is not necessarily going to be your own ideas. You're going to be synthesizing ideas from other scholarly information that you read. So everything listed in this slide is considered plagiarism. Okay, the first four I'm sure you're all familiar with. Okay, again, this is turning in someone else's work as your own. So if you have someone else write an assignment for you, or you find a similar assignment on the internet and turn it in, that's plagiarism. Copying words or ideas from someone else without giving them credit, that's plagiarism. Not putting a quote in quotation marks if it's a direct quote that you're taking from another source, okay, that's plagiarism. Giving incorrect information about a source or about the source of a quotation. So if you quote something and you say it comes from somewhere and it doesn't, okay, that's, well, academic dishonesty. And then the last two you might not be as familiar with or might not be as obvious, but they are considered plagiarism, all right? So if you copy the sentence structure of something, from an article, and you're just changing some words and you still don't cite the source, that's plagiarism. And then I'll also note, here that changing a few words in a sentence, but keeping the original sentence structure, that's not considered paraphrasing, okay? And we'll talk about paraphrasing in a second and what that actually means. And then also, if you're using so many ideas or so many words from a source, that basically that one source becomes the majority of your work, that's also plagiarism, even if you cite them and you give them credit, all right? Because at that point, it's no longer your work, it's somebody else's work. So in most instances, minus the last example, you can really avoid plagiarism simply by citing your sources, okay? So we'll get into that in just a second, but I want to talk for a second about what can happen if you are caught cheating or engaging in academic honesty, or you're caught plagiarizing. Okay, specifically what can happen to you as a student here at FAU. All right, so the FAU's academic code, or FAU's Code of Academic Integrity, it's very clear about the penalties associated with academic dishonesty. All right, and the penalties start at the course level. All right, and so your instructor, if they find out that you have plagiarized or cheating or have engaged in academic dishonesty, they can determine how to penalize you, okay? And so they can start with failing you on an assignment, all the way up to failing you in the course, all right? And they have the discretion on how they want to go about penalizing a student. And if it results in failing a course, that penalty, that grade cannot be removed from your transcript simply by you dropping the course or withdrawing from the course, okay? So some students, if they get caught early in the semester and they fail something, and it ends up, you know, being taken up to the next level, they may think, well, I'm just gonna drop the course, I'm gonna withdraw from the course and everything will go away. It doesn't work that way, all right? If you're caught engaging in academic dishonesty, even if you drop the course, again, it's not gonna go away. If you fail the course, if the instructor chooses to fail the student due to academic dishonesty, then there will be a notation that ends up going on the student's transcript. And it will say on your official transcript that you have to give to employers or you have to give to, you know, PhD programs. You know, it will have an academic dishonesty notation on there. And I guarantee you the last thing that an employer wants to see is an academic dishonesty notation on a student's transcript, right? Particularly if you're going into the field of criminal justice. That doesn't look good to employers. Students are able to have that notation, that academic dishonesty notation, removed from their transcript if they complete a peer counseling program that the Division of Student Affairs administers. But the grade doesn't change, okay? It's just that notation will go away on your transcript to outside people. There'll still be a notation, an internal notation for FAU on your internal FAU records, and your grade will still be a failing grade. And then if there are repeated instances of academic dishonesty, a student can be expelled from the university. And I wanna be clear, you know, we have unfortunately had some issues of academic dishonesty, both at the undergrad level and at the graduate level here in our criminal justice program. And we do take it seriously. All right, plagiarizing is one of the biggest cardinal sins that a person can commit in academia. All right, our ideas are pretty much all that we have as our claim to fame. And so it's a huge deal. We do take it seriously. And it's something that we do not want to have to punish a student, you know, for engaging in. And then, you know, something that, you know, you might not know as a student is that FAU's Code of Academic Integrity says that if a student becomes aware of cheating or plagiarism or other forms of academic dishonesty that are occurring in their course, so if you become aware of other students in your classes engaging in this type of behavior, FAU's Code of Academic Integrity says that you as the student are required to report that to your professor, to the graduate coordinator, so to Dr. Dario, or to me, or to the director of the school. So you as a student also have a moral obligation and a required obligation according to FAU's Code of Academic Integrity to report on that behavior. Because if somebody in your class is engaging in that behavior and they don't get caught, and they, you know, go on, they're diminishing your degree that you're going to leave here with, okay? So basically, now that I've scared, I'm sure, the bejesus out of you, and that's not the point of all of this, I want to, you know, how do we make sure that you don't plagiarize, okay, so that you don't get into that type of situation? So first and foremost, when in doubt, cite your sources. All right, that's the best advice that we can give you is if you're not sure, cite it, okay? Cite where you got that information from. unless you're doing your own original research and you're writing up the findings for that. And when I say your own original research, I'm not meaning that you're looking up information in other articles. I'm talking about you're getting out there, you're collecting your own data, you're analyzing the data, and you're writing up the findings from your own analysis of your own data. All right. You wouldn't have to cite that. That's your own original research. Okay. But unless you're doing your own original research or something is common knowledge, you should always be citing the sources where you got the information from. All right. Something is considered common knowledge if the average educated reader would accept that information as reliable without having to look it up. All right. So if we, were to say that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, that's common knowledge. All right. You don't have to cite that information. If you were saying that Obama was the first Black president, that's common knowledge. You don't have to cite that information. All right. But in our class specifically, I'm going to give a lot of examples related to the death penalty because that's what I'm teaching right now. But if you were going to say that support for the death penalty has declined since the 1990s, that's not necessarily common knowledge. All right. You would need to cite that. All right. And so where did you get that information from? All right. You might have got that information from the Gallup poll, right? Because the Gallup poll is who has done national representative surveys on people's support for the death penalty. So if you're using statistics from organizations such as the Gallup poll or the Census Bureau or Bureau of Justice Statistics, all right, that's not common knowledge. That is all information that needs to be cited. Again, at the end of the day, the best advice really is, when in doubt, cite your sources. All right, I see that there's like something popping up in the chat. I don't know.
Yeah, so Hannah is asking for, Hannah and Sabrina want to know some common knowledge examples within criminal justice and criminology.
That's a good question.
What if I was to say, there are three criminal justice systems: sentencing, corrections, and policing. That would be like a common knowledge type of thing. Dr. Caesar, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other ones.
I put my suggestion in the chat, excuse me. But like police departments are bigger in urban centers. Crime goes up in the summer. Carjackers are usually over the age of 20. I don't know.
See, I wouldn't say that kind of information is common knowledge, though. Right.
But something that at least is not necessarily open for a lot of debate. Like if I said babies can't carjack anybody, that's maybe not common knowledge either, but it's kind of irrefutable. If you are, and some of you are looking at me crazy, but to come up with these foregone conclusions, the accepted fact is kind of a challenge. But the first one that came to mind for me was that cities tend to have higher crime and higher amounts of police officers. Those are things that are generally, I think, Cassandra, is that accepted?
It would depend on who your audience is. and so that's something to also consider, is who is your audience.
So now, Hannah says, so highly debated topics within criminal justice systems can be considered common knowledge.
Should not be considered common knowledge.
Yeah.
So Hannah, can you give us an example about what you would consider a highly debated topic?
I guess an example would be, I guess the death penalty. I know not a lot of people know like the statistical facts with the death penalty, but the topic in general, I guess, would be considered common knowledge.
Well, again, it depends on what about the death penalty you're talking about. Is it common knowledge? Like the fact that the death penalty exists in the United States, I would think that is common knowledge and would not necessarily need to be cited. But
John,
if you're...
sorry, Dr. AP. John just had a good one. It was the Second Amendment. So if I said, he doesn't have to cite the Constitution. The right to own a firearm is common knowledge. So yeah, some legal type of things. This is hard.
It is hard. It is hard. And so when in doubt, cite your sources. And that's what I would say is, if you didn't go into the class knowing that information, you should probably cite the source, right? And even though your professors are going to be, for the purpose of your papers and for the purpose of your midterms, et cetera, your professors are going to be the ones who are reading it. They're going to be the ones who are grading it. And it might be common knowledge to them. You're trying to demonstrate within your writing and within your papers that you understand what you're talking about and where you got this information from, right? So if you're saying that I saw, oh, Katie, you asked about, popular Supreme Court cases, right? So if we're talking about Furman versus Georgia that was decided in 1972, right? So what happened if you say the death penalty was abolished in 1972, you need to cite where it was abolished. Okay, so it was abolished due to the decision of Furman versus Georgia, right? And then it was reinstated in 1976 due to Gregg versus Georgia, which I know that you already know. But you're going to say that, okay? You don't necessarily need to say that you got this information from the Boehm textbook or wherever. But how do you know that the death penalty was abolished, right? You got that because it was abolished in this Supreme Court case. Yeah, it gets tricky when it comes to common knowledge. When in doubt, cite your sources. All right. And if you have can think of other good examples, please, definitely put them in the chat. Because I think that they, we would like to see them and to be able to, help you make a decision on whether something is common knowledge or not. Let's see. So to avoid plagiarism, you also want to make sure, make it very clear in your writing who said what. All right. If you're discussing ideas from a source, you want to say that. You want to make it very clear whether the ideas are your own ideas that you've come up with or whether they are coming from someone else. All right. It's also really important to know how to paraphrase. All right, because you're not going to direct quote everything that you write in a midterm or in a paper. And we don't want to see direct quotes throughout an entire paper, okay? Because that doesn't show your ability to understand and to synthesize the information. So as I said on the last slide, if you copy someone else's sentence structure and just change one or two words, that's not paraphrasing. All right, paraphrasing though, it's when you keep the content of the source, but you're changing the words and you're changing the sentence structure. All right, but you have to remember that even when you do paraphrase, you still have to cite what you paraphrase. All right, even though it's in your own words and it's in your own sentence structure. A lot of times what students end up thinking is that they need to hide the fact that they're getting information from other sources, all right? That they don't want their professor to know that they didn't come up with these brilliant ideas, all right? Or that you're relying on other sources, but that's what you're doing, all right? And it's actually an advantage to use other sources to support your ideas, all right? If you say that you don't support the death penalty, that's your own opinion, but then you can cite it or, bolster your opinion with actual facts from different sources. That just bolsters your opinion. All right, so there's nothing wrong with relying on other information from other sources. You just need to say that you're getting this information from other places. All right, any questions about plagiarism before we move on to actual APA citations? No, we okay? If you have any as we go through things, just, let me know, okay? So what I want to do is go through proper APA citations in a reference page, and then we'll go through proper in-text and parenthetical citations. And we'll end with how to create an APA style title page and an APA style reference page. All right, and so this is, you know, kind of hands-on. I'm going to literally like be typing out the how to cite things and explaining everything that I'm doing as we're going through this, okay? We're going to start with how to cite a journal article, then we're going to talk about how to cite a book, we're going to talk about how to cite a chapter within a book, and then how to cite a website. Now, those are not necessarily the only 4 types of sources that you are going to cite within your papers. All right, you may cite a government document, you may cite a dissertation that you find. There's tons of other sources that you may end up citing. And also, I guarantee that everything that we go through here isn't something you're necessarily going to remember. And it's not something you're expected to memorize. Okay, you are not expected to memorize how to do APA citations. I've memorized how to cite journal articles, but only because I've been doing this for so many years. All right, I did not have it in my head how to cite journal articles without looking it up when I was a master's student. There are tons of online resources for you, free resources for you. And I'm gonna put a website in the chat for you all, but this is my favorite website that I use when I have to look up how to cite something, because again, I have not memorized how to cite every source that's out there. And even to go through this presentation, I had to look up how to cite certain things. All right, so again, you're not expected to memorize this stuff. But the Purdue Online Writing Lab, so I call it the OWL at Purdue, it's Purdue OWL. But this basically has examples on how to cite everything. It has examples on how to construct a paper in APA format, how to do a title page, how to do the reference page, how to do a running header, it has information on everything. All right, and I'm happy to go through the website with you all as well. And then also what I'm gonna do after this is I'm going to send Dr. Dario a quick reference guide that provides references or provides a guide on how to cite journal articles, books, and book chapters. All right, so that you could go straight to that PDF as opposed to necessarily going to this website. But I would recommend, you know, familiarizing yourself with this website and using that kind of as a starting point when you have to look up how to cite different sources. All right, so we're going to start with a journal article. Okay, oops, hold on. All right, you can still see this. Do you see like the full screen, or you see it where like I can type? I'm gonna guess you can see it where I can type, where I'm typing.
Yeah, we can see the type.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is an article, and I'm not above self-promotion. So this is an article that Dr. Sloas and I published, or had published last year. The title of the article is Support for Balanced Justice and Rehabilitation for Justice-Involved Veterans. The journal that this article is published in is called Criminal Justice Review. It was published in 2019 in volume 44, issue 2, and then it's published in pages 165 through 182. So basically what APA citation is, it's just a set of rules, all right? It's important to understand that for APA citations, every period matters, every comma matters, every space matters, every capital letter matters. So if you see an example and something is italicized, that should indicate to you that when you reference something, that same part should be italicized, okay? And I'll explain that in here. All right, if there's a period here, a period should be there in your reference as well, all right? But it's basically just a set of strict rules. And if you don't follow the strict rules, then you're not properly citing in APA format. Okay, so we start this with the authors, okay? And when we cite with the authors, we do last name only. Well, not only, but we do last name and then their initials, okay? And you see I put a comma, a space, a period, a space, period, comma. Okay, all these things matter. This is all part of proper APA citation. And because there's two authors here, we do the and then we add Dr. Slos's name as well. Then we put the date of when it was published in parentheses, followed by a period. Okay, that period matters. It belongs there. Then what we do is we put the title page, the name of the article. All right, and for the name of the article, even though in the article you see how balanced is capitalized, justice, rehabilitation, justice, all of these words are capitalized, that's not proper APA citations, okay? Journals are gonna have their own formats for how they like things to look, but it doesn't mean that it's APA formatted. All right, so even though every word almost is capitalized in this title, you don't capitalize every word in the title when you're citing it in your reference page. So only the first, okay, so only the first word is capitalized, okay? If there was a subtitle, so if there was a colon and it said, awesome, okay? The next, well, okay? This would be capitalized. This first word of the second of the subtitle would be capitalized, okay? But this article is awesome, we just didn't put in the title. Okay, so we have the title of the article, and then what we're gonna do is we italicize the title of the journal. So this article is published in Criminal Justice Review. So we italicize it, and unlike with the title of the actual article, you capitalize every word in the title of the journal, okay? And then you put a comma. And then you put the volume number, also in italics, followed by the issue number, not in italics, but in parentheses. Then another comma, and then 165, 18 through 182, the page numbers. Okay. Anyone want to tell me what's missing from this for your reference page? That just didn't format itself properly? Not you, Lisa. Winnie?
The indent, I don't know what it's called, but you have to indent the second line, like
Yes. So anything that's after the first line, you indent. Whoop, I don't know why the J went up there. Oh, because I indented in the wrong place. All right. So this is what it would look like in your reference page. Okay. What questions do we have about this?
Oh, sorry, Dr. AP, I have a request about something I see in a lot of student papers is trouble with that indentation, because sometimes students will use the tab button. Can you actually pull up Word and maybe show us how you would indent that using the ruler at the top?
Yep. Just give me a second because my computer moves slow when I have a million things open. Okay, so you get the point. I'm not going to type out the whole thing because at this point I don't remember what. So all you have to do is take this little, I don't know what it's called, but this little thingy at the top. You have to get one of them to move. and you just slide it over. Okay, there probably is a specific amount of space that is required.
It is. It's right at that tab that you're at.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you just do that. And then every time you type another one, it will automatically be that way. Okay. So I'm not going to type another one because I don't have another one off the top of my head. But if I type this again, it would, because this is already like that, it will already indent your second line for you. Okay. Okay, so let's look at a book. Okay. So this is our textbook that we're using for our class. Okay, so it's Death Quest. All right, so how do we cite then a book in APA formatting? So again, you start with the author. Okay, so this is always the same. The author followed by the date. And we can see the date. This was published first published in 2017, okay? And then you do, for a book, you do the title of the book in italics. Now, Death Quest is weird because it's one word. And I would say that you need to capitalize both words. Okay, sorry, I was reading the chat. And then just like in the, oops, this should be italicized also. And then just like in, when you're citing an article, the title of the book, you only capitalize the first, see, yeah, this is how that's the name of the book. And I don't like it, but it is what it is. Okay, so you see here that I only capitalized death and then the word and, because it comes after the colon, it's a subtitle. But then also, I see this a lot of times, is that students think, well, I'm not supposed to capitalize any other words, so I'm not going to capitalize the United States. Okay, well, you do capitalize any proper nouns. All right, so you would capitalize the United States in this title. Okay, and then this is the 5th edition of a book. So if a book has more than one edition, then you say that, okay? And you do 5th and then ED period, all within parentheses, and then you do another period, and then you type the publisher. Okay? So this is how you would cite a book. Okay, so Boehm wrote this entire book. There's not different authors for each chapter, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So as Dr. Dario said in the chat, according to APA formatting, everything is Times New Roman font, size 12 with 1-inch margins. All right, that's standard. So make sure that everything is, 12-point font, Times New Roman with 1-inch margins and double spaced. All right, so we good on the book example. So this is now a book that has multiple authors. It's an edited volume, okay? So this book, Smart Sentencing, is edited by these 3 individuals, and each chapter has different authors. All right, so for this, if we're gonna cite chapter 1 of this book, how do we do so? And again, this is not stuff that you're expected to memorize, okay? I do not off the top of my head know how to cite a chapter in an edited volume. Okay, this is all information that you can get from that OWL website that I sent you. All right, so if we're gonna cite this though, we start by citing, or by citing the chapter itself. Okay, so that is what you use, the authors of the chapter. Okay, and this book, is it possible to get a copy of the examples? Yeah, I can happily send you, I'm fine with sharing this PowerPoint as well with everything put in. And I'll also send or provide to Dr. Dario a quick reference guide for you as well. And then I will also go to the website and show you that at the end. So this book was published in 1992. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie, okay? So we got the title or the author's names, okay? And then when it was published in 1992. And now we're going to cite the title of the chapter itself. And again, even though in this table of contents, it shows you that everything is capitalized, that's not proper APA formatting, right? So for the title of the book chapter, okay, but United States is again capitalized. And then now you're telling us what book this chapter is in. All right, so this chapter is in a book that is edited by J.M. Why they can't keep things consistent is beyond me, but here you put the initials of the first name initials first, followed by the last name. And then you let everyone know that these are the editors of the book. And the book is Smart Sentencing. And then you also have to tell us what pages this chapter is in. So this chapter is in pages 1 and it goes through 17. And then the publisher of this book is Sage. All right. So again, here, the title of the book itself is italicized. The title of the chapter is not. Here, when you're saying the pages of the chapter, you have to indicate with the PP dot. Again, all of these, it's just a set of rules. Okay, follow the rules and you'll be okay. Oh. And then indentation. Okay. Any questions on this?
So we wouldn't put Sage Publications Inc. It's just Sage.
If you put Sage Publications Inc., you're not going to get points taken off.
Okay.
So Sage, that's like their full name. They go by just Sage. When in doubt, you can go ahead and just put the entire name, okay? But you also wouldn't get in trouble if you just put Sage. So let's look at a website. Nope, not there yet. All right, so I've taken a screenshot from the Death Penalty Information Center, which is currently one of my favorite websites. All right, so if we're gonna cite a website in the reference page, because this website does not have an author, okay, sometimes you'll go to a website and it will say that this is the author of this page, okay? You would use the author's name, as we've been doing in the past. This doesn't have an author, okay? So we cite it as if the Death Penalty Information Center is the author. This page also does not have a date, unlike the other publications that we've been citing. So if it doesn't have a date associated with it, then you put no date, ND, okay, just like that. And then you put the title of the page, of the web page itself, in italics. So this is an executions overview. And then you also say when you retrieved it. All right, so when did you go to this website and you get the information that came from this website? And you do that specifically if the information in that website is likely to change or on this page. All right, and this page talks about executions and that there's been 1,526 people executed in the United States. Okay, that number is likely to change. So you need to say when you retrieved that information if you're going to use that statistic. Okay, so retrieved, and then I looked this up on October 5th, 2020 from, and then you put the website address. That's not the website address. That's the website address, okay. And then again, okay. So again, because there's no author for this web page, you use the organization as the author. And then we put the retrieve from date and then the website. Okay. Questions about websites? Okay, not yet. Now again, it's good. Every website you're going to go to, you're going to find it's going to look different. It's going to have different information. All right, and this is where the OWL website really will come in handy, based on what information is provided in the website of how you're going to end up citing that source. Okay, so let's move on to talk about in-text and parenthetical citations. Okay, so an in-text citation, again, this isn't my image, all right, but an in-text citation, these are also called narrative citations. And this is where the author's name is incorporated into the text as part of the sentence. And then the year follows in parentheses. The parenthetical citation, on the other hand, is when the author's name and the date, and then a page number if you're directly quoting a source, all appear within parentheses at the end of the sentence. Sometimes it will also appear in the middle of a sentence. Okay, so then how do we cite this article as an in-text citation? Okay, again, this is the same article, but now we're gonna say, instead of the authors found this, we wanna use the people's names, all right? And so what we would do here is we would replace the authors, okay, with Atkin, Plunk, and Sloas, 2019. Okay, and that's how you cite that in your actual paper when you're writing out, you know, something that a source or that research found. And notice here that and is not the ampersand, it is actually the word and written out. Okay, only when it's in your reference page or within a parenthetical citation to use the actual and symbol. Okay, if we're gonna cite this same thing as a parenthetical citation at the end, Whoop, except it's 2019. All right, so we're saying the same thing. We're just saying that who are the authors? We need to know that. Well, it's Atkin, Plunk, and Sloas 2019. Okay, so that's an article that has 2 authors. Okay, if it has 1 author, it's gonna be similar. Yep, I'm definitely going to give you an example, Hannah, of 3 authors where you use Atkin, Plunk et al. And how did you know that that was going to be my example? Okay, so now we have a different article that has 3 authors. All right, and so how, is there a reason why you would use one way versus the other for in-text citations? Amy, can you unmute yourself and ask your question again?
Yeah, so I was wondering, like, you use in-text citations and then you showed a way for parenthetical citation. Is there a reason why you would use like one versus the other?
No, just to change things up.
Okay, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter when you're citing inside of your paper which one you use?
No, not necessarily. If you want to speak directly to what, like if you want to call out the authors and say, this is what they did this in this study, you may, start by saying Atkin, Plunk et al, or, Atkin, Plunk, and Sloas. But no, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's just 2 different ways. So if you can write things differently.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so if we're citing this article, and now we're not going to go through the reference page citation for this, but we're just going to talk about how we would cite it in the actual text. Okay, so when you have more than 2 authors, so when you have anywhere between 3 authors and 20 authors, okay, and in criminal justice articles, you're not gonna, it would be very, 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 very rare to find anything with more than like 5 authors. So if we were gonna cite this as Atkin, Plunk, Peck, and Armstrong, the very first time that you cite something with, or a source that has more than 2 authors, you list all of the authors. Oop. This was also published in 2019. Okay, so Atkin, Plunk, Peck, and Armstrong. Okay, this is what we found in this article. One of the things we found. Okay. If we were going to cite it for a second time, or a third time, or a 4th time, if we were going to talk about this study again later on, that's when you use the et al. Okay. So Atkin, Plunk et al. And notice that there's only a period after the all. Okay, there's not a comma here, there's not a comma or period here. It's just Atkin, Plunk et al. And yes, Katie, I'm going to get to your question in just a second. Okay. You will also sometimes see people say Atkin, Plunk, and colleagues. I personally think that's personal preference, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with saying and colleagues. I've also written and submitted things to journals where I've had reviewers come back and say, you can't say and colleagues, you have to say et al. I think it's personal preference, okay? But when you get to the parenthetical citation, it's not personal preference. So if we were citing this article for the first time in a parenthetical citation, and again, this is for the very first time it's appearing in your paper, that you do list all of the authors. Okay, For the
I have a
second,
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you were to like say you cited a different study within this article, do you go and find the original, or
Yeah.
do you just cite this one?
Yeah, so the idea is that you're going to go and find the original article, all right? That you wouldn't cite a source that's been cited in another source. Only if, in a very rare case, if you didn't have access to it or you couldn't find it, that you might do so. And there are examples of how to do that within the website, but yes, the idea is that if that you would go and find the original source and you would cite the original source. Amber, do we always cite the authors in the order it's written in the journal and not alphabetically? That is such a good question, and the answer is yes. Author order matters, okay? So in criminal justice research specifically, the understanding is that the person who is the first author did the most work on the article, okay? And so they typically get the most credit for the article. It's not that the other authors didn't do or weren't as important, but that there's a clear reason always why an article is in, or the authors are in a particular order. And so I actually learned that because I made a mistake one time when I was early in my career and I was writing, and I took every article and I rearranged the authors into alphabetical order as well. And that is wrong. Okay, don't do that. But so that's a really good question, Amber, that yes, keep the authors in the same order, and you always go by the alphabetical order of the first author. And I'll show you that when we get to the reference page in a minute, okay? And I know we're getting close on time, but I would like to stay and finish if that's okay with everybody else. You're free to leave whenever, but I'm gonna stay and keep going, all right? So this is the first time it appears, okay, this citation. The second time we would cite it, okay. The second time we would cite it would be Atkin-Plunk et al. Okay, so again, that's whether it appears, and it doesn't matter how it appears for the first time. All right, if the first time it appears in text or the first time it appears in parentheses, you cite it with all the names. The second time it appears, it doesn't matter if it appears the same way, you do the et al. The second time around, and the third and the fourth, and every other time you cite it after the first time. All right, so if your first time it appears in text, and your second time it appears in parentheses, then that second time in parentheses, it's gonna be the et al., like what you see. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna cite this website as an in-text citation. So here, according to the website, so we're gonna say according to the Death Penalty Information Center. Okay, this many people have been executed since the 1970s. Okay. And it would be the same thing if you were going to cite it at the end. It would just be Death Penalty Information Center, comma, no date. And then so the last couple of things that I want to go over and look at with you all is the title page and the reference page. All right. So if we look at a title page and for APA formatting, let me take this back. Okay. your title page has the title of the article or the title of your paper, okay, followed by your name and the university. You also are required to put a running head, all right? And how this works is you put this up in the headers of your Word document. Running head is not capitalized. And then your entire running head, though, is in all capital letters. And then your page number. And then the second page or any subsequent page after that, I'm just going to show you the running head. Your running head does not have the words running head. Okay, the word running head only appears on the first page. Okay, it doesn't appear on any other page. So then what you can see here in the reference page, as you know, Dr. Dario had mentioned, that everything's going to be double spaced. This is 12 point Times New Roman font. There are 1-inch margins. I just have, you know, cropped it to where you can't see the 1-inch margins. And in your reference page, so this gets to a couple of things, you know, what Amber asked, the authors are in a particular order. They're not alphabetized, but your reference page is alphabetized by the first author. Okay, so it goes Atkin-Plunk, and then Peck, Atkin-Plunk, Sloas, okay, because S comes after P. Then it goes to Bohm, then Death Penalty Information Center, and then I just call him Luigi. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but so that's how you put your reference page. All right.
I don't think I heard you mention this. If you did, I apologize. But if there is a citation, let's say it's Atkin-Plunk and Sloas 2019, and then you wrote another paper with Dr. Sloas in 2019.
Yep, so if you have two papers that have the same authors and the same date, and I can't edit this because it's, oops, it's in a picture, but you would have 2019A, and then you would have the citation, the next citation would be 2019B. Okay, so that's how you would differentiate which one is which while you're actually citing. Yep, just like what Dr. Dario put in the chat. Okay, so 2019 with a lowercase a, 2019 with a lowercase b.
Are you going to go over how to create the running head?
I sure can. Okay, you see this? The Word document?
Yes.
Thank you. So you just click up here in the header area of your Word document. Well, so it's actually, Word is difficult at times. So what I have to do, and somebody may have a better way to do this, and I just don't know how to do it, but you put in your page number first at the top of the page, because if you go and you do the running head and then you try to enter the page number, your running head's going to go away. So, okay, now that's your running head. Okay. And then you would go on to your next page and it would have the number 2 and so on.
And on the following pages, the words running head would just disappear. We don't have to do anything.
It doesn't just disappear, because why would we make things easy? And somebody else is going to have, it takes me forever to figure out how to get the running head to go away here, but not go away on page 1. There is a way to do it. I did not practice that for this presentation, and it will probably take me an hour to figure it out. But if somebody knows how to easily do that, Dr. Dario, you took yourself off mute.
Yeah, so there is you can either do a page break or like Katie just said, do different first page. Honestly, if I have a student who has the running head, I don't take points off for that.
I would say that I'm the same way. If it says running head on every page, I wouldn't take points off either.
Yeah.
But as Katie just said, you can hit different first page. Somewhere you just have to figure out how to do that. And we could, like I said, we could be here all night while I try to figure this out. Let's see if this works.
Katie says you just hit different first page. The different first page is under header and footer tab. You got it, yeah.
Okay. And then of course my page number went away. But it does look different. Oh, no, actually, hold on. Hold on. Let's see. Hallelujah. It worked. Thank you, Katie. So all you have to do is when you're inserting your page number or you're going to your header footer.
Hannah says there's an APA template. Do you know about this, Dr. AP?
I have absolutely no idea, so I do not want to speak to it. I'm old school. The kids know much better about the easy ways to to get around having to actually type it all out. I have no idea about it. It's in Word. All right, fantastic, Hannah. I just don't know how to do that yet, so I don't want to speak to it. What other questions do we have about APA, anything related to APA citations? Let me pull up. So this is the OWL website that I sent you all. And when you get into here, it will literally tell you everything. The basics about in-text citations. All right. And you could read all this. The basics or authors for in-text citation. So this is showing you where you have two authors. This is how you would cite it in text. This is how you would cite it in parentheses as a parenthetical citation. If you have three or more authors, oh look, see, I'm lying to you all. So APA format, APA, the American Psychological Association, they just like over the summer came out with a new addition to the APA manual. So for basically my entire professional career, I've been operating under the 6th APA edition, or the 6th edition of the APA manual, and they just came out with a 7th. So what they're saying here is that for the 7th edition, even the first citation you do et al, you don't list all the authors. All right, so if you do it that way, you shouldn't get points taken off, assuming that your professor knows that that's what the 7th edition says. And now I know, so I wouldn't be taking it off. So again, I would highly recommend getting yourself familiar with this website when you have questions. Again, it tells you how to, in your reference section, how to cite something with a single author, how to cite something with 2 authors, with 3 to 20 authors, again, with more than 20 authors, which you should not probably won't encounter. So if a professor doesn't want a formal title page for an APA paper, where would you suggest putting our name? I'd just make a title page anyways.
I was going to say that. I mean, I gave a suggestion, I'd put your title and then your name and then start the text, but I don't know anybody who wouldn't want just.
Yeah, I would suggest, like, even if they don't say it's required, just do it. It's not hard. And it looks better, I think, than starting, something with a title page or with, your name. Was that me, Katie? Did I suggest or say that? Is that what you're about to
No, it was Dr. Sloas. He said
He didn't want a title page, but I think I'll probably just do one anyway because I think they look better too.
Just do it and then tell him we told you to do it.
Okay.
What other questions do you all have about APA formatting, plagiarism, whatever it may be?
I actually have a quick question.
Mhm.
In regards to citing from a book, so I'm citing from a textbook now, but in like each chapter, there's different authors. So if I'm going to use something from one chapter that has one author, for my in-text citation, would I cite that author and then in the reference page just cite the whole overall book?
Nope, nope. That's a great question. So let me show you, okay?
Okay.
So the example that I gave you all for the smart sentencing book where we cited the first chapter, right? So that's this Luigi and Peter Cilia article, okay? So these are the authors of that chapter, of chapter 1. And it's in this book that's edited by this author, or by these authors. In text, you're gonna cite Luigio and Peter Cilia for that, if you're citing from chapter 1. If I was citing from chapter 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever chapter, I would cite the authors of that chapter. And so you're going to have multiple references in your reference section for that one textbook, okay? So for every chapter that you end up citing, if it has different authors and a different title name for the chapter, you're going to cite that in the reference page. You're going to have it for chapter 1, for chapter 5, for any chapter that you end up citing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. I saw somebody else take themselves off mute at some point.
That was me. I had a quick question about the website and the hyperlink. I noticed that you separated from the word from. Say, what if there was enough space to put it there? Would you put it there? Or?
Yeah, yes, I didn't separate it. It just separated itself because there wasn't enough space.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so if it fits, it sits, right? If it fits, it goes there. Yeah, so right here, this is what you're talking about, Rochelle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just because the link was too long for it to all fit on that one line. But if you can see here in the actual reference page, well, that's not a good example. But if this from happened to be on the next line, it would all fit there and stay there on that line.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes a link may be so long that it wraps to a second line or a third line, and that's fine.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Is it possible to get this PowerPoint like tonight? Only because we have a midterm due for SWOS on Friday.
Yep,
so it'll be very helpful.
Yep, I will send it to Dr. Daria and I'll also post it in our Canvas page as well, Winnie.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Casey, did you have a question? I saw you took yourself off mute. I can't hear you, Casey. I still can't hear. I don't know if anybody else can. No. Okay, can you just type it in the chat and then I'll answer? Perfect. So like I said, I'm gonna, that link that I sent you all in the chat, save that as a bookmark. I'm also gonna send Dr. Dario this this page, what is it? PowerPoint. This is gonna be real good for class tonight. I'm also gonna send you the quick reference guide, and then I will also send you on the OWL's website. They have a sample paper, and I saved that, and I'm going to send that to you as well. And so this is the sample paper, and so it kind of, it's a lot of information. It kind of goes over a lot more than you probably need to know, but I'll send this to you as well. I will note that for my class, at least, I don't want you don't need to write an author's note. Okay, you don't need to write corresponding author because you're submitting this to me for class. You're not submitting this to a journal for publication. All right. Also for my class, and again, this is going to depend on your professor as well. I don't need you to write an abstract for your midterm. All right. A midterm is different than a research paper where you might have to write an abstract. All right. But I'm going to send all of this information to Dr. Dario so she can post it in the MSCCJ Canvas course, and then I'll send it to my students as well. Okay, so Casey asked, when citing an author in a chapter, you use the author of that chapter and do not need to include the authors of the book in the in-text citation. Correct. Correct. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. Well, actually, I don't have a good example for the PowerPoint for the in-text citation. But yeah, you're only citing the authors of the chapter itself. Okay, the authors of the book, the edited volume of the book, that's going to appear in the reference page only, not in the in-text citations. So that's a good question. See, there's so many different, different examples that we can't go through them all. But that's a really good question. All right, so I'm gonna call it for this, only because our class starts in 15 minutes. So I wanna get us, into that Zoom room, out of this Zoom room and into that Zoom room. But like I said, I'm gonna share all of this information with Dr. Dario, who will post it in the Canvas course. I hope this was helpful and not like below you all. I mean, I don't know how familiar everyone is with APA citations and everything. And so I just, I wanted to give kind of a cursory overview of APA formatting. And again, just letting you know that it's just a set of rules. And I have a feeling that most of people in this program are rule followers. And so if you're rule followers, you're going to be able to follow the rules of APA citation.
Yeah, so thanks, Dr. AP, for taking the time to present tonight. And thank you to all the students who came. Dr. AP, it looks like from the chat that everybody loved the presentation and thought it was helpful. So that's awesome. And yeah, so we will see you guys for the next professional development event. But other than that, have a great night.
All right, see you all in 15.